Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you is how to install a cartridge filter on your dust collection system. So I have one of these. This is pretty much the standard model. Every major manufacturer has some kind of entry model like this with, you know, somewhere between like a 1 and 2 horsepower motor attached to it. It's got one of these little separators, and it usually comes with one of these bags. Sorry, this one's a little bit dirty, but it comes with one of these bags on top and then a plastic bag on the bottom, and that's just kind of how they all look, right? Just to mention real quick, this is the filter that I'm using. It's the model number down here. Hopefully you can see that. I got this from a website. They're called Wynne filters, W-Y-N-N-E. The dust-sized particles that are gonna, you know, get into your lungs and cause real harm are the very small ones, like 5 microns and less, 1 micron less, or 1 micron or less. So this is, I really think this is a good investment. Anyway, so that's the filter, that's the model number. And we're going to go ahead and attach this to the separating mechanism from one of those standard dust collectors. So I highly recommend taking this off. It stands, they typically come on one of these metal stands here. Just take that off, and it's going to make it a lot easier to attach this thing. Essentially, these filters come with like a 1/2-inch gasket up top. Looks like this. And basically, we're just going to go ahead and set that on top of here and seal it with some turnbuckles. And I'm going to put the slope surface here on top so that it seals against this gasket as evenly as possible. This is all going to be under positive pressure when this pump is on, so it's very important that we seal everything as best as possible to keep all that fine dust from getting out. So I'm going to apply silicone all along these different areas here. And then I'll also put some kind of a neoprene gasket or something like that on the screws when I install them to keep any dust from escaping, basically. All right, so I've cleaned up all these sealing surfaces with some solvent. First thing I'm going to do is apply a bead along the inside edge here. Okay, so I applied silicone all on the inside sealing surfaces of this separator component. Did the rivets and all along the edge here. It doesn't look really pretty, but you know, form over function and all that. It'll do its job. I mean, worst case scenario, it'll come off once I turn the bag on and get caught in the plastic bag or something, or it'll just collect dust and, you know, for a few minutes and then just saturate. Either way, there's no real downside to doing this, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Next step is going to be attaching these turnbuckles. So the way you attach this separator component to the filter is with these 5/32 turnbuckles. Basically, each one of these hooks is threaded in an opposite manner. One's left hand, one's right hand. So when you turn this metal piece here, it's going to tighten it down or loosen both at the same time. So basically what you do is you just put it on your lip here, like this, and then slide the other part under the metal lip of the filter. Hopefully you can see that. And we're going to tighten it, so we're going to turn it clockwise, and it'll slowly tighten. And normally this filter comes with, I think it comes with 3. And like I said, when you put 3 on and tighten down, it sort of makes this into a triangular shape, because this is kind of thin sheet metal. So I just went out and bought like another 3, just to give it a little bit more even, just the space the stress out a little bit more evenly. So I'm just going to orient these sort of a, you know, even pattern here. Okay, so I'm done tightening them. Basically, like I said, I snugged them up first so that they just barely were tight enough to not move. And then I tightened them in a star pattern about a half turn at a time. And I did that until the first turnbuckle maxed out. Right, so that one's maxed out because the screws are touching one another. and some of them have a little bit more gap than others. That just depends on how the sheet metal was. But yeah, you can see the majority of the sheet metal's pretty fine. This is the only part that has a little bit of an odd, you know, shape to it. Just go around a little bit. So all of it's pretty even, except for that part. And that's probably because the seam is here, and also this part that's cut out. It's still flexible. But anyway, there you can see the seal. So the goal is for that to seal against that curved surface. All right, so I'm ready to install my plastic bag here. Here we are. So the trick here is to install this bag with as little wrinkles around this sealing edge as possible. Alright, so I've got it on there, but I want to keep it about the same spacing, so best way to do that is grab yourself some little scotch tape here and just tape it in place where you want it, which is basically at the very edge of that lip. Alright, we'll give that a shot, see how well that works. So basically, all you're going to do is put your band in this lip here. There we are. And then tighten it down. Just like that. Now just make sure it's not wrinkled. Just go around here and make sure it's you know, nice and even, not wrinkled, so you don't have any leaks. All right, the only thing left to do is reattach the legs. The only thing different I'm doing is I'm going to use a nylon washer and also a rubber washer. And the idea is, once again, to just make sure there's no air leaking out anywhere as much as I possibly can. So the legs are going to go like this. So we're going to go ahead and insert that screw there. Rubber washer on the inside. Okay, so I got the base reattached. That was the last part of this assembly process, is attaching these steel support beams back to the base, and of course the cycle and separator. That's it, everything's back together. Now, my setup probably looks a little bit different than yours, and that's because of the incorporation of this two-stage thien baffle. There we are. Went over that in the other video. So this thien baffle is going to act as a two-stage separator, meaning all the larger pieces and stuff should drop down into this garbage can, and so I won't have to unfill this bag so often. The base are 2 sheets of 3/4 inch plywood. It's mobile because I reused the wheels that were on the original base. The original base, of course, was this thin piece of sheet metal here. There we go, it's mobile. And the incorporation of this filter is going to significantly increase the airflow, as well as minimizing the connection points here. Minimizing the amount of bends and the amount of flex in these connections is really going to help my airflow a lot. So when I'm checking for leaks, the critical areas that I'm looking for is anything downstream of the motor, right? So the airflow goes into the inlet, through the baffle, up here, through the motor, and then out here. Everything downstream of the motor is going to be under positive pressure, meaning it's going to blow outward through any cracks. And that's exactly what we don't want, because the reason we're doing all this is so we can collect the dust in a controlled manner and keep it in the system, right? So if there's any leaks here, around here, or the bag, it's going to come right back out in the atmosphere. Now, we also want to leak check, you know, everything here, but it's less critical. Basically, if anything leaks upstream of the motor, essentially we're just going to lose suction and pump efficiency. But since we're sucking inward, we're not going to get any dust in the air if there's any leaks here. So less critical, but you still want to check them. This is one of the things you're looking for here. You see this dust? If there was no air escaping here, there's no way this dust would be up here because there'd be no pressure differential. So this is what you're looking for, telltale signs of dust along the border here. And similarly, along the filter here, looking all inside this edge here for any kind of, sawdust that was blown out and is accumulated on the surface. So that's what I'm looking for. So because it's virtually impossible to get rid of all these wrinkles, these bags are a little bit oversized so you get them on easily. I will go ahead and apply some duct tape all around the edge of this just to make sure we don't have any leaks. I've got a piece of aluminum tape and I'm just going to go around and attach it. This tape is more of a permanent kind of tape. Normally I'd use just regular strength duct tape, but I don't have any right now. So I'm just going to go with this. Okay, so we've taken care of one critical area here, and that's the bag sealing surface to the separator component. Obviously you want to check for any holes in your bag, your plastic bag, because that's going to throw everything out. I don't have any in mind. The other critical areas are around here, and there's not a really great way to check for leaks here other than just by feel or, grab a feather or something like that and see if, there's any air movement around there. The other critical area is obviously here, the sealing surface from the filter to this cycling component. And that's a little bit more difficult to seal. Basically, if there's a leak, I'm gonna have to take this thing out again and probably apply some silicone to that gasket, then put it on and wait for it to dry, because I don't really have any other way of sealing. But how we're going to check for leaks is I'm just going to grab some flour from the kitchen. You can also use, if you already have really fine dust or sawdust laying around, just sprinkle it in there. All right, let me show you what we got here. Just all along the rim there. See that? I just put some flour down there just because it's got very fine dust particles. So now all that flour is right up against that O-ring there, or the sealing surface of the filter. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn it on, and what I'm looking for is just puffs of flour being blown out from anywhere once I turn this motor on. And that'll indicate there's a leak somewhere along that seal that I need to fix.
All right, here we go.
There we go. All right, now to get that stuff back out of there. Cleanup's pretty easy, just use a shop vac. So most people, I don't really see taking this extra step of actually leak checking their system. And I think that's a mistake because it only takes like 10 minutes or so. And you're virtually never going to remove this filter, right? I mean, if dust gets in there, all you're going to do is blow it out like that and, knock it off from the inside. You're never going to really remove it. So it's only takes 10 minutes, and I think it's well worth the peace of mind to make sure your system's leak tight. We're all leak tight. The only place I can't really check is here, like I said, but it looks pretty damn tight. I've got my hose hooked up, and I had to use my table saw without any filtration during this project, so it's filled with a bunch of dust in there. And I'm just going to go ahead and hook it up real quick and see how well this dust collector works for me. Okay, so I'm hooked up to the table saw right now, and I'm about to flip the switch. So we just sucked up all the dust that was stuck in the bottom of the table saw, and as you can see, there's basically nothing in here, which is quite surprising actually. there's like the very faintest amount of dust in here. You can see that it's really, really fine dust down here. Just a little bit too. There we go. As you can see, that's actually pretty fine dust too. So that's really nice. I wasn't expecting it to be that effective, but yeah, I mean, that's really good. Very happy with this project, actually. This should make stuff a lot better, a lot cleaner. So I filled my trash can up, and I just wanted to show everybody the effectiveness of this baffle. I haven't actually pulled this lid off yet, but this trash can is completely full of stuff, and look how fine this is. I'd say about 80% of the material in here is from the sander, so it's very fine material. The other 10% is jointing material, which you can see here, and then the rest of the 10% is table saw material. And I have to say, this thing worked amazingly well. The only reason there's anything in here is because this started getting full. That's how I knew to check the garbage can, because before that there was absolutely nothing in here. It's actually quite amazing. I really wouldn't have believed it myself if I hadn't seen it, but this baffle works really, really well. Really happy with it. I just want to show everybody that. So yeah, I would highly recommend this project.